What do you think has changed the most for you? Not as just as a performer, but as a person since like your first album or two drop?
Well, I was really young when we started. I was 16 when we started. So, yeah, I'm obviously in 34. I'm a different person than I was at 16. I mean, there's certainly similarities. I was very kind of singularly minded as a kid of what I wanted to do, and I remain that artistically. But going to bring it to Warped Tour, I kind of went from being a kid at Warped Tour to then, I'm going to be on Warped Tour within a matter of, a year or two, essentially. So the first Warped Tour that we did, I was a little older than most of the kids that were in the crowd, but not much, and so to see it from that angle, it's also different for me because I think a lot of times people associate Warped Tour with, particularly the 2010s version of Warped Tour is seen as like young people as fans and then the adults in bands, right? Yeah. And that sort of power dynamic is different. Than for me, I was the age of or a few years older than the audience that was coming to see us. And so we were all kind of experiencing it together. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so I view even myself at that age, starting the band and the dreams and ambitions that I had, kind of part and parcel of that whole experience of like, I have this vision and this idea and I want to speak for and to these people that feel like me. And it was also different from a lot of the other bands that were around at the time because most of those other bands, and I don't mean this as being rude, but a lot of them were speaking 10 years out from those things that they were talking about, right? Like they're in their mid-20s and talking about like, it's hard to be a kid. And you're like, well, okay, but I actually was a kid.
I was just a kid.
Yeah.
Totally. I do think that is something Warped Tour was good at too, is like kind of bridging that gap between fan and band and icon. It's like, yeah, like some of the guys were a bit older, but on the whole, I feel like they were pretty accessible. There was always like a way to meet them or go to the tent or go to a signing. And I think that's like one of the cooler things is there's no like ego involved. It's like everyone's just there for a good time. That
was actually something that really, for me, I ended up, I wrote a book and a few other things. And one of the things that really inspired me to do that was, there were these things called TI classes on Warped Tour for a couple of years. And I did those and I would sit with our audience in a more kind of one-on-one setting in a fucking hot tent for an hour and a half. But I would speak directly because, the context of meet and greets is a little different because people are very nervous and there's a small amount of time that they have to meet you.
Quick.
Yeah. But in those circumstances, I was able to understand where the audience is coming from, maybe the ways in which they relate to our songs or the things that are important to them and the things about myself that I could share. And so that also was really important because that's not something that you get to do at whatever club when you're coming up. It's if you're sitting at the merch table, yeah, you're accessible, but it's loud, it's crazy, whatever. And early on in our career, that became less and less of an opportunity. So Warped Tour kind of presented that chance to be able to connect more directly.
Totally. It is definitely like a singular experience and very special. Yeah. I think my biggest Warped Tour memory was taking a drum lesson from We Are the In Crowd. Was the band I took it with. And I was just like, wow, looking back, I was so stoked that day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, absolutely.
It means a lot to fans. Yeah. You were extremely involved in the alt scene growing up before performing at Warped Tour. Like do you feel like you got the chance to attend a lot as a fan?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it was an every year thing. Yeah. And it shifted because I remember the summer that it shifted where I was no longer just thinking, oh, I'm a fan of all this. I remember the last one that I went to as a fan, I was thinking like, oh, I should be on this now. Like I was getting impatient.
Yeah.
I was probably 15, but I was thinking like, all right, clock's ticking, I got to get this going. And then every time I went ever after that, I think Juliet and I went, I think one year that we weren't on it, and visited Kevin and a lot of our friends and stuff I want to say it was at the Ventura date.
Yeah.
But otherwise, every Warped Tour I've been at I was on the other side of the fence, so to speak.
It's so cool that you were like, I want that. It's time. And you did it.
Yeah. I mean, that it's sort of funny. I always say, and I don't mean this in a negative way, but, I'd never had the sort of aspirations of like the ubiquitous fame or all of those kind of things. So for me, I kind of joke that like my main goal for my career was like wrapped up by the time I was like 20. I'd already done that, whatever. But no, it just is so formative to me. It means so much in ways that it's really hard for me to even quantify. Like there's just so many important things that happen, whether it's obviously my wife and my marriage and my life, but friends and other bands and just people that I've known for 15 years,